9mm. Georg Luger designed the cartridge in 1901 by enlarging the 7.65 by 21mm case to accept a 9mm projectile and paired it with the Luger pistol soon after. The German Navy adopted it in 1904 and the Army in 1908, and wartime distribution pushed it across Europe. NATO later standardized it during the Cold War, and the U.S. military selected it in 1985 with the Beretta M9 after decades of .45 ACP service. The cartridge is also known as 9mm Luger 9x19 Parabellum and 9mm NATO, while the 9 persists as a shop floor nickname. Typical bullets run from 115 to 147 grains, with velocities around 1,000 to 1,300 feet per second, depending on barrel length and loading. SAMI pressure sits at roughly 35,000 psi with +P, and occasional +P+ offerings that trade recoil for speed. The FBI returned to it in late 2015 after modern jacketed hollow points delivered reliable expansion and penetration without the recoil and training burden of the .40 S&W. Military forces across NATO rely on it, and American law enforcement shifted to the controversial P-320 with military designations M17 and M18 service pistols. By 2017, both are chambered in 9mm. Civilians gravitated to the same benefits: capacity, manageable recoil, and abundant platforms, cementing its position as the default defensive handgun round. .45 ACP. The U.S. experience in the Philippine-American War exposed the weakness of 38 long Colt service revolvers against determined adversaries. Ordnance boards then sought a .45 caliber auto-loading round using smokeless powder, and John Browning designed one with Colt, culminating in the adoption of the Model 1911 pistol and .45 automatic cartridge in 1911. Standard ball ammunition uses a 230 grain bullet at roughly 850 feet per second at modest pressures around 21,000 psi. The low operating pressure encourages long service life and a gentle recoil impulse relative to its caliber, and the straight-walled rimless case feeds reliably in well-built pistols. The cartridge served through 2 World Wars, Korea and Vietnam, in pistols and in submachine guns such as the Thompson and M3. Law enforcement agencies used it widely in the mid-20th century, and civilian shooters kept it alive in service pistols and competition. Ammunition spans hardball traditional and bonded hollow points, monolithic copper designs, and niche loads. Many modern units moved to 9mm for logistics capacity and training economy. But .45 ACP remains in production across countless 1911s double stacks and even revolvers that use moon clips. The cartridge endures as a large-bore sidearm option with proven history and some of the broadest commercial support. .22 long rifle. The lineage begins with Louis-Nicolas Flaubert's 1845 rimfire BB cap for indoor gallery shooting, then moves through Smith & Wesson's 1857 .22 rimfire revolver cartridge and the 1871 .22 long. J. Stevens Arms and Tool Company created the .22 long rifle in 1887 by combining the long's case with a heavier 40-grain bullet, and that formula defined modern rimfire shooting. Most loads use 30-40 grain bullets. Standard velocity hovers near the transonic region around 1,095 feet per second from rifle barrels, while high velocity approaches 1,200 and hypervelocity can exceed 1,500 with lighter projectiles. The platform selection is unmatched: bolt actions, semi-automatics levers, pumps, single shots, revolvers, and pistols, plus specialized suppressed builds. Recreational shooters use it for inexpensive practice, and small game and formal disciplines stretch from NRL 22 to Olympic competition. Military and intelligence services have used it where quiet operation matters, and aircrew survival guns paired .22 with a small shotgun bore for versatility. Ammunition catalogs show an enormous spread: subsonic rounds for suppressors, shot shells for pests, hollow points for small game, and match offerings for precision. The .22 LR remains the universal entry point for new shooters, and its low recoil, modest report, and affordable training value keep it dominant. .357 Magnum. Smith & Wesson introduced the .357 Magnum to the public in 1935 after development through 1934. Designers Elmer Keith Philip Sharp and Douglas Wesson lengthened the .38 special case to prevent accidental chambering in older revolvers, then paired it with sturdy metallurgy to handle markedly higher pressures. The first revolver, the registered Magnum, later known as the Model 27, set a premium standard with custom features. Early loads pushed a 158-grain bullet to around 1,500 feet per second from long test barrels, which gave police a response to automobile bodies and early ballistic vests that blunted .38 special performance. Fun fact, the name Magnum was borrowed from oversized champagne bottles, marking the first time the term was applied to ammunition. That association with larger and more powerful became a naming convention for many subsequent cartridges. Bullet weights commonly run from 125 to 158 grains, and pressures sit near 35,000 psi. The cartridge accepts .38 special ammunition for economical training and reduced recoil, which made mixed-load regimens practical. Police departments across the United States fielded .357 Magnum revolvers for decades, and the FBI and state highway patrols used them during periods when road interdiction and vehicle barriers challenged sidearms. Hunters carried long-barreled versions for deer-sized game at close range and for defense where handguns were preferred. Production remained strong across Smith & Wesson, Ruger Colt, and others, and the .357 retains its place as the origin of the Magnum family. 10mm auto. Development of the 10mm traces to the 1970s, when Jeff Cooper and collaborators pursued a .40 caliber auto-loading cartridge that delivered a 200-grain bullet at serviceable speeds. Dornauus and Dixon introduced the Bren 10 pistol in 1983, and Norma loaded the new 10mm auto to robust performance for that launch. Early ammunition pushed 200-grain bullets to roughly 1/200 feet per second, bringing energy on par with mid-range .41 Magnum revolver loads. SAMI pressure registers around 37,500 psi, and bullet weights span roughly 135 to 230 grains, which lets manufacturers tune loads for defense hunting or barrier work. The FBI selected the 10mm in the aftermath of the 1986 Miami shootout, but soon requested reduced recoil ammunition to improve qualification rates. That reduced load inspired the shorter .40 S&W, which fit into 9mm-sized frames and saw far wider service adoption. The Bren 10 suffered production issues, but other platforms kept the cartridge alive. Colt's Delta Elite, Smith & Wesson's 1000 series, and Glock's G20 family among them. Outdoorsmen later adopted the cartridge for backcountry defense and medium game hunting, and law enforcement special teams experimented with it in pistols and PDWs like the MP10 and the KRIS Vector. The modern market supports both full-power hunting loads and softer defensive offerings, and the 10mm occupies a durable niche. 12-gauge shotgun shells. Smoothbore shoulder arms evolved from early fowling pieces to practical breech loaders during the 19th century, and standardized paper and brass shells brought reliability. Smokeless powder and robust actions shaped the modern 12-gauge era, while iconic pump-action designs, such as the Remington 870 and Mossberg 500, carried it into police cruisers, duck blinds, and home gun racks. The gauge system describes bore size by the number of lead balls of bore diameter that equal 1 pound, so 12 spheres make a 12-gauge. Typical bore diameter is about 0.729 inches. Common shell lengths are 2 3/4 3 and 3.5 inches, with longer hulls carrying more shot and powder. Load categories include birdshot for small game and clays, buckshot for deer and defense, and solid slugs for large game or barrier defeat. Specialty loads extend to breaching less lethal options and frangible designs. Civilian use spans hunting sporting clays and home defense. Law enforcement agencies relied on the 12-gauge for close-quarters stopping power and door breaching, and military units fielded trench guns in 2 world wars and beyond. The U.S. Marine Corps adopted the semi-automatic Benelli M1014 M4 in the 90s. Modern plastic hulls, buffered shot, and non-toxic pellets keep development active, and production remains worldwide. 5.56 x 45 mm NATO. The cartridge grew out of the late 1950s Armalite and Remington effort to deliver a lightweight, controllable round for the AR-15. Engineers started from the .222 Remington, progressed through the .222 Special, and commercialized the .23 Remington, while the military refined a 5.56 x 45 mm loading. The U.S. fielded 55-grain M193 ammunition in Vietnam, with the M16 rifle. Then NATO standardized a 62-grain projectile with a steel penetrator as SS-109 M855 in 1980. Typical bullet weights range from 55 to 77 grains. Velocities approach 3,000 feet per second from 20-inch barrels, which yields flat trajectories and manageable recoil. Later developments addressed terminal performance and barrier consistency. The U.S. Army's M855A1 Enhanced Performance Round uses a copper slug with an exposed steel penetrator. The Marine Corps adopted the Mk318, and special operations units employ the 77-grain Mk262 for precision at extended distance. The cartridge serves as the standard infantry round across NATO and in many partner nations, powering rifles, carbines, light machine guns, and designated marksman platforms. Police tactical teams favor 5.56 carbines for accuracy and controllability indoors. Civilian shooters embraced it through the AR-15, where plentiful ammunition and interchangeable parts made training and competition straightforward. Experiments with newer intermediate calibers continue, but the 5.56 endures as the most popular intermediate rifle cartridge across the United States and much of the Allied world. 308 Winchester. Winchester introduced the .308 Winchester in 1952 as the commercial counterpart to the U.S. TT-5 program that produced 7.62 51 mm NATO, adopted in 1954. The new cartridge delivered .30-06-like performance in a short action that allowed lighter receivers and shorter bolt throws. Typical hunting and service bullets weigh 150 to 175 grains and achieve around 2,600 to 2,800 feet per second, depending on barrel length. Recoil stays manageable for field rifles, which helped the .308 become a standard for general big game use. Military service spanned battle rifles such as the M14 and FN/FAL general-purpose machine guns like the M60 and later M240 families, and sniper systems including the U.S. Marine Corps M40 and the Army's M24. Police agencies adopted .308 bolt-action rifles for precision at urban distances, and civilian marksmen used it in high-power Palma and practical precision matches. The cartridge also seeded a family of derivatives, including .143 Winchester and .358 Winchester. Modern loads include bonded bullets for controlled expansion, match bullets for long-range accuracy, and reduced recoil options for training. The .308 remains one of the most widely chambered rifle cartridges, appearing in bolt actions, AR-10 pattern rifles levers, and single shots with steady ammunition availability worldwide. 30-06 Springfield. The U.S. Army refined the .30-03 service round into a Spitzer bullet .30 caliber cartridge in 1906, creating the .30-06 Springfield and pairing it with the M1903 rifle. Engineers shortened the case and moved from a 220-grain round nose to a 150-grain pointed bullet at roughly 2,700 feet per second, which improved external ballistics and flattened trajectories. The cartridge served as the primary U.S. rifle and machine gun round through 2 world wars and into Korea, powering the M1903, M917 Enfield Browning machine guns and the semi-automatic M1 Garand that redefined infantry firepower. Bullet weights for sporting use span 110 to 220 grains, and the long-action case provides ample room for slow powders that extract velocity without stepping into magnum recoil. Hunters adopted it for nearly all North American big game, and for many African plain species and ammunition catalogs reflect that breadth with soft points, bonded cores, and monolithic copper offerings. Military influence and long sporting service created a global supply chain that still supports the cartridge in bolt-action semi-automatics and even levers and pumps. The .30-06 retains a reputation for reach and flexibility, and modern components keep performance competitive more than a century after adoption. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, pass it along to fellow firearm enthusiasts, and subscribe for more content of this kind. Thanks for watching. 300 AAC Blackout. Advanced Armament Corp., working with Remington Defense, released the 300 AAC Blackout in 2011 after formal SAMI acceptance. The concept advanced J.D. Jones's 300 Whisper by standardizing dimensions for reliable function in AR-15 platforms with only a barrel change. The design shortens a 5.56 case to accept 30 caliber bullets while preserving overall cartridge length for AR magazines. Supersonic loads typically use 110 to 125 grain bullets at roughly 2,100 to 2,350 feet per second, producing ballistics similar to 7.6 to 39 in short barrels without magazine geometry issues. Subsonic loads run 200 to 240 grains near 1,000 feet per second, which pairs well with suppressors for exceptional sound reduction and minimal muzzle flash. The cartridge burns efficiently in barrels around 7 to 9 inches, so compact rifles and personal defense weapons cycle reliably. Military and special operations units evaluated it for close quarters roles, where suppressed fire and short overall length matter, and several commercial rifles, such as compact piston systems, capitalize on those traits. Law enforcement tactical teams use it for reduced blast indoors and for flexible ammunition selection. Civilian shooters employ it for home defense, night hog hunting, and range use, often swapping between subsonic and supersonic magazines in the same rifle. Ammunition and platform support now sit firmly in the mainstream. 40 S&W. Designed on January 17, 1990, by a Smith & Wesson Winchester team under Robert M. Klunk, Jr., 40 S&W emerged from the FBI's post-1986 search for 10mm auto-terminal performance in a 9mm sized package. The case is a shortened 10mm, retaining the same head and bore, engineered to fit medium-frame pistols, while delivering the FBI's reduced velocity 10mm spec. It debuted in the S&W Model 4006. Glock leveraged its 10mm work and announced the G22 G23 a week earlier, reaching duty holsters quickly. The 94 magazine cap also nudged buyers toward larger bores at the same 10-round limit, accelerating adoption. Also known as 40 Auto 10 by 22mm and informally 10mm Kurds, it uses a rimless straight case that headspaces on the mouth, a small pistol primer, and SAMI max pressure of 35,000 psi. Bullet diameter is 4.0 inch, case length 850 inch, overall length 1.135 inch. Typical loads run 135 to 200 grains, with common defensive offerings at 155-80 grains from 4-inch barrels. It suits locked breech pistols and standard double-stack magazines of roughly 12 to 16 rounds depending on frame size. Early 40 caliber Glock chambers had generous feed support that with hot or out-of-spec reloads occasionally produced dramatic case failures. Modern chambers and ammunition largely made this a historical footnote. Law enforcement agencies adopted it widely through the 2000s. Many later returned to 9mm sighting advances in bullet design, recoil management, and pistol longevity. Commercial ammunition remains broadly available and supported by major handgun makers. 380 Special. Smith & Wesson introduced 38 Special in 1898 as a stronger, longer case derived from 38 Long Colt, addressing that cartridge's poor field performance and accommodating early smokeless powder while remaining compatible with existing revolver architecture. It became the standard American police round from the interwar years through the late 20th century and saw military service in both World Wars and even in Vietnam, despite the prevalence of the .45 ACP and 9mm, known variously as 38 S&W Special, 38 SPL, and 9x29R. It actually uses a 357-inch bullet due to legacy naming from heeled bullet .38s. The rimmed straight case is 1.155 long, with an overall length around 1.55 inch. SAMI limits standard pressure to 17,500 psi with a +P envelope above that. It uses a small pistol primer. Revolvers chambered in 357 Magnum will accept 38 Special, but not vice versa. Typical standard pressure loads include 130 grain FMJ near 800 feet per second and 158 grain lead around the mid-700s from vented 4-inch barrels. The famous 158 grain lead SWC hollow point +P, often associated with the FBI in the 1970s, built a strong reputation in service revolvers. An earlier high-velocity path, the Mag 3844 high-speed load, used heavy frames as a stepping stone to the 357 Magnum. Tracer ball and specialized military loads appeared across decades of issue. In current use, it remains a mainstay for snub-nose carry target work and training supported by a broad ecosystem of wad cutters, standard pressure, and +P defensive ammunition. .44 Magnum. Conceived in 1963 to 1964 through a collaboration between Elmer Keith and Bill Jordan, with input from firearms enthusiasts like Skeeter Skelton, the .41 Remington Magnum was intended to offer police a more effective round than 38 Special without the weight and recoil of .44 Magnum alongside a heavier hunting load. The concept encompassed two loadings: a mild police load near 900 feet per second with a 200 grain bullet and a full-power hunting load around 400 feet per second with a 210 grain jacketed bullet. Production ammunition, however, arrived hotter than intended, and the service revolver built for it, the S&W Model 58, proved heavy compared with common duty revolvers of the era. The cartridge uses a 410-inch bullet in a 1.29-inch rimmed case, overall length about 1.59 inch. SAMI maximum pressure is similar to .44 Magnum's range, and the typical rifling twist is near 1 turn in 18.5 inch. In practice, the perceived recoil and muzzle blast combined with revolver weight limited law enforcement adoption, but hunters noted a flatter trajectory and strong penetration on medium game. Production revolvers included S&W models 57 and 58, and Ruger Blackhawks, with later chamberings appearing in carbines, such as the 1894, and again, Henry's Big Boy Steel. The .41 developed a dedicated following among handgun hunters and revolver enthusiasts who preferred its balance, and ammunition remains commercially available from major and specialty makers. 7.62 by 30 Creedmoor. Hornady's Dave Emery and Creedmoor Sports' Dennis DeMille sketched the 6.5 Creedmoor in 2007, bringing it to market in 2008 as a purpose-built competition cartridge that fits short-action magazines while seating long, high BC bullets without intruding deep into powder space. The parent is 30 Thompson Center, necked to 6.5mm, with geometry optimized for modern bullets and a standard 1-in-8 twist to stabilize 130 to 147 grain projectiles. The practical outcome is efficient external ballistics, with moderate recoil particularly attractive to precision rifle competitors and field shooters. The case is a rimless bottleneck with a length of 1.920 inch and overall length near 2.825 inch. SAMI map set at 62,000 psi. Barrels of 22-24 inch are common in hunting and service rifles. Competition rigs often run longer. Factory loads include 120 to 147 grain bullets. Real-world velocities for 140 class match bullets cluster around the mid-2600s to high 2600s in 24-inch barrels remaining supersonic to extended distances with less wind drift than traditional 30 caliber service loads. The 6.5 Creedmoor was evaluated favorably by U.S. Special Operations in the late 2010s, leading to its adoption in rifles like the Mark 20 SSR, though its role is more limited than a broad program cartridge, as 7.62 NATO remains dominant in many military applications. A British DMR program adopted 6.5 Creedmoor as well. Handloaders have both large and small rifle primer brass options. Data is not interchangeable between them. Today, it is a common chambering in bolt guns and AR-10 pattern rifles for competition hunting and designated marksman roles with extensive factory ammunition support. 7mm TP. John Moses Browning designed the .380 automatic in 1908 for Colt's compact locked breech pocket pistols, and manufacturers quickly embraced simple blowback pistols for the same cartridge due to its modest pressure. Before the Second World War, it replaced .32 ACP in many European services for officers and police, where size and controllability mattered more tthan range. It persisted in police holsters well into the post-war era, before 9x19 became the norm. Also labeled 9x17mm, 9mm, Browning Short, Kurzakort Court, and similar translations, it is a rimless, straight-walled cartridge that headspaces on the case mouth. SAMI maximum pressure is about 21,500 psi. The bullet is 355-inch, despite the .380 name. Case length is 680-inch, and typical overall length is just under an inch, enabling very small pistols. In blowback pistols, the fixed barrel can aid practical accuracy. In modern locked breech pocket guns, the same ballistics arrive with lower slide mass. Normal bullet weights run 85 to 100 grains. Factory figures place a 90-95 grain bullet around 950 to 150 feet per second from barrels near 3.5, 3.8 inch with energy near the 200 foot-pounds mark, depending on load. Pistols like the CZ-83 and compact SMGs such as the MAC-11 also appeared in this caliber, leveraging low recoil for controllable automatic fire in close quarters. Today, it remains common in ultra-compact carry pistols, with modern expanding loads tuned for short barrels, improving consistency within the cartridge's inherent limits. 38 Special Winchester Magnum. Winchester launched the .300 Winchester Magnum in 1963 as a 30 caliber Magnum that fits standard length actions. The design pushes the shoulder forward on a shortened .375 H&H based case, trading a short neck for generous powder capacity. Although the 7mm Remington Magnum garnered early attention, the 300 Win Mag steadily became the most popular 30 caliber Magnum among hunters and also established itself in long-range competition and military precision roles. The cartridge is a belted bottleneck with a 2.62-inch case overall length, around 3.34 inch, and a 1 in 10 twist standard. SAMI maximum average pressure is 64,000 psi. Bullet weights from 150 to 220 grains are common. A 180 grain load around 30 feet per second from a 24-inch barrel is often considered the baseline. Heavier match bullets at 110 to 20 grains deliver high ballistic coefficients for extended range precision, though very long, or mono-metal designs may require deeper seating that slightly trims usable powder space. It offers roughly a few hundred feet per second over 30-06, with a corresponding increase in recoil, prompting many manufacturers to equip rifles with effective pads or brakes. The .300 Winchester Magnum gained military credibility with loads like the Mark 248 MOD 0-1 using 220-grain Sierra Match King bullets, though its long-range performance was already well regarded in civilian use. In the sporting world, it is associated with elk moose and mountain hunting, where retained energy and trajectory at distance matter. Despite newer 30 caliber Magnums, its combination of performance availability and rifle compatibility keeps it firmly established across disciplines. Elmer Keith's high-pressure .44 special experiments in the 1940s and 1950s laid the groundwork for a commercial Magnum cartridge. Remington standardized the load, and Smith & Wesson built the first production revolvers, releasing the .44 Magnum in 1956. The case was lengthened from .44 Special chiefly to prevent inadvertent chambering in older, weaker firearms. Manufacturers quickly realized its utility in carbines and lever guns, enabling one-cartridge rifle and revolver pairings reminiscent of frontier practice. Also known as .44 Remington Magnum, it uses a 4.29-inch bullet, despite the nominal .44 designation. The rimmed straight case measures 1.285 inch, with overall length around 1.61 inch. SAMI maximum averages in the mid-30,000 psi range. Revolvers with tight tolerances and proper forcing cones handle a wide spectrum of bullet weights from 180 to 340 grains, with popular mid-range hunting loads at 240 to 300 grains. Carbines often deliver a notable velocity increase thanks to barrel length and the absence of a cylinder gap. It is unsuited to conventional police service due to recoil and blast, though it excelled in hunting and backcountry roles. A generation of shooters first encountered the .44 Magnum, particularly the S&W Model 29, culturally, through cinema. It saw a huge increase in demand due to its prominence in films like Dirty Harry, significantly boosting its popularity. Today, it remains widely manufactured, including in semi-automatic platforms such as the Desert Eagle, and continues to serve for medium to large game and bear defense, where deep penetration is required. 327 9mm. The 7.62 by 39 mm was designed in 1943 by a Soviet team led by N.M. Elizarov, with contributions from designers like B.V. Semin. The original intermediate cartridge began with a 41 mm case and a flat base bullet. Subsequent improvements in ogive and the addition of a boat tail for better exterior ballistics required shortening the case to 38.7 mm to maintain overall length, yielding the final 7.62 by 39 specification. It anchored a family of infantry weapons, the SKS carbine, AK pattern rifles, and the RPD, and later RPK light machine guns, entering service by the end of the Second World War and proliferating worldwide thereafter. The cartridge is a rimless bottleneck with a tapered case that aids extraction and shapes the curved AK magazine. SAMI pressures sit around 45,000 psi. CIP permits higher proof levels, and barrels commonly use a twist near 19.45 inch. The 7.62 by 39 mm uses 310 to 311 inch bullets in both CIP and COMBLOC standards. Western rifles are generally designed for these diameters, not 308 inches, which is a common misconception. Ballistics with a 123 grain bullet typically run in the mid-2300s FPS from 16-20-inch barrels. Service ball evolved from the M43 steel cord PS to variations such as Yugoslavia's M67 with a flat base that yaws earlier in tissue, to specialized tracers, subsonic loads for suppressed use, and modern armor-piercing designs. In civilian contexts, it migrated into sporting semi-autos and bolt guns. In the U.S., it occupies a role akin to .30-30 for deer-size game at modest ranges. Ammunition and rifles remain abundant worldwide, with continuing military police and militia use alongside extensive commercial availability. 6.5 Remington Magnum. Remington introduced the 7mm Remington Magnum in 1962 alongside the Model 700, drawing from the belted H&H family. The goal was practical long-range big-game capability with less recoil than the largest .30 caliber Magnums and better wind behavior than .30 caliber bullets of similar weight. It quickly eclipsed the .264 Winchester Magnum in popularity and settled into the role of a general-purpose Western hunting cartridge. The case is a belted bottleneck with a 2.50-inch length and overall length around 3.29 inch, typically using 1 in 9 twist 1 in 10 twists to handle 140 to 175 grain bullets. SAMI maximum averages around 61,000 psi. Factory loads commonly advertise 140 grain bullets near 100 feet per second and 160 grain bullets around 30 feet per second from 24-inch barrels, with longer barrels favored by many to realize full velocity potential. At high impact speeds on close shots, robust bullet construction matters to manage fragmentation on large game. It found limited precision and law enforcement roles, occasionally appearing in counter-sniper applications where flatter trajectory at urban distances was useful. The U.S. Secret Service, for instance, historically used custom-built 7mm REM mag rifles for counter-sniper roles, leveraging its accuracy and ballistics for precise engagements according to Sierra bullets. Hunters across North America and abroad continue to use it for elk-class game and beyond. Ammunition is widely offered in weights from roughly 140 to 75 grains, and rifle makers regularly chamber it in both factory and custom builds. Its balance of trajectory energy and manageable recoil remains the source of its enduring presence. 300 Federal Magnum. Federal and Ruger developed the .327 Federal Magnum with its official introduction in 2008, based on the .32 H&R Magnum, lengthening and strengthening the case to operate at 45,000 psi, a pressure more typical of modern semi-auto cartridges than traditional revolver rounds. The design brief was straightforward: place 6 rounds in small-frame revolvers that would otherwise be 5-shot .357s, while delivering energy and velocity in the same general performance tier with more agreeable recoil for many shooters. The cartridge is a rimmed straight case measuring 1.20 inch with overall length around 1.47 inch, using a 3/12-inch bullet and a small pistol magnum primer. In short barrels near 3 inches, 100 grain loads around 400 feet per second and 115 grain loads near 300 feet per second are common figures. Longer revolver barrels push those numbers significantly. In lever-action rifles chambered for flat shooting trajectories and small game utility broaden the appeal. Ruger offered SP101, GP100, and Blackhawk variants, later adding the single 7 and LCR. Henry introduced their Big Boy Steel in .327. Federal and Taurus entered with a compact revolver. Compared to .357 Magnum, the .327 produces less punishing muzzle blast and recoil in the same envelope while allowing for an extra chamber in similar-sized frames. Commercial availability has stabilized into a dedicated niche, supported by both defensive and field loads, and it remains in production across several platforms. 41 Mag. That wraps up the video. If you found it useful, give it a like, share it with others interested in small arms history, and subscribe to catch future uploads. Have a subject you'd like to see covered? Leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching.